Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for this new episode of Inspiring Our World. My name is Julie Tara and I am your host here, and I'm super excited today to have a great friend of mine. We've known each other 33 years, I was counting today, my friend Nancy Allawos. Nancy, thank you so much for being with us today.
Such a pleasure, Julie. Great to be here.
Yeah, this is an exciting topic we're going to cover here on holistic approaches to weight management. And I know you are an expert in this arena and you have many certifications. I was looking back. I have some of them here, like Swedish Institute of Massage, and I do remember having massage with you, and it was amazing. Macrobiotics and Holistic Nutrition with Culinary Institute. You worked with us at Nova Healing Arts in our healing arts in Colorado here with natural medicine, of course, and nutrition. And then you studied at the Institute for Integrated Nutrition in New York City for health and nutrition counseling. So, and you really got into the coaching realm. And then you went into the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, which we're going to really focus on today. And becoming an eating psychology counselor, which I was looking at that and going, that sounds amazing. Eating psychology counselor, I love it. You've also been a teacher at the Culinary School of the Rockies here in Boulder, Colorado. I know you did that for a long time, and you're a chef. So you know your stuff, and that's why I'm so thrilled that we're going to have this conversation today about weight management, because this is a big issue. Many of us struggle with it, and I know that we have some really key concerns. Like in North America right now, we have 80% of the population in USA is overweight, and about 40% is obese. So we have some real problems here, and I want to talk about this. I want to unpack this with you. And so my thinking was maybe we could start with something you and I both love, which is exercise, and then move into more food and diets and that sort of thing, and what you think about all the different diets that are going on right now, and then the psychology of eating, which is going to be fascinating. So can't wait. So
Great.
let's start with exercise, because we know activity is critical, and we know it's age appropriate. We know hormones change, especially for women as we get older, metabolism slows. Tell us your thoughts about exercise.
Well, I think that it can be any imaginable type of thing as far as exercise goes. I mean, you cannot ask anyone to do movement that they don't like, because it won't work, and they'll stop doing it and they'll feel guilty. And, so it has to be something that works for each individual. And there's a million different ways to move. And it's also so age dependent and also gender dependent. There's so many variables in what would really feel good to each individual. I mean, I've hurt myself throughout my life also trying to maybe exercise a little too much or do modalities that didn't really work for me. So I think there's a certain finesse and poise that comes with figuring out what movement to do. But when in doubt, walk. I mean, if just simple walking, particularly as people age, I think, the running, I've actually stopped running. I ran for years. Walking is so fantastic. I think that if you're going to look at exercise in a broad term, you have to look at strength, flexibility, and cardiovascular. Those are really the three things, because you need to do a little bit of kind of either yoga where you use your body resistance, or Pilates where you use your own body as resistance, or lift light weights, because that will keep osteoporosis, at bay. The cardiovascular piece is so critical because we got to keep blood pumping through our arteries so that we don't get clogged and have heart issues. And then the flexibility piece is just critical so that we are not stiff and we can get out of a chair and we can get off the floor. So many people end up sitting because they're in pain. So I think those three things are critical, and you just have to, there is no one perfect answer, but you got to get up and get moving. I move less now as I've aged, and I don't go straight up mountains like I used to, but I definitely feel like every day, even if it's just to walk around the block, keep moving.
So every day, as a discipline, and I mean, obviously it's a habit, right? The more we do it, the better we like it, the better we feel, we see the benefits and so forth. Would you say about an hour a day? What kind of time frame would you give it?
Well, yeah, and I don't think an hour a day is particularly realistic for most people. I think if people do 5 days a week, where they do 45 minutes to an hour of some time, I mean, gardening, even walking the aisles of Costco is amazing exercise. It's just, you just have to keep it moving. But yes, if you're striving for health, you want to, 5 to 7 times a week, do a little combination. Like I turned my den into because, when COVID hit, I quit going to the gym. I didn't go as much, it was just such an odd time. So I kind of turned one of the rooms in my house. I don't have a specified gym by any stretch, but I have push the couch over and I put my little yoga mat out. And I do like 10, 15 minutes of stretching. I do some, lightweight things, and then I go take a walk, and so it doesn't have to be complicated. And there is no one perfect answer. So go inside and find something that works for you, I think is the key.
And what I hear you saying is that over time you've made just natural adjustments. You're going to, okay, this isn't working so well anymore. I think I'm going to shift like from running to jogging to walking, these kinds of things. I've noticed this myself. Like I do like jogging, but my body doesn't like it very much. So walking feels better. I did a lot of yoga for years, and especially through COVID, I was doing it every day, and then after that time, I went back to Pilates, which I've been doing since 1995, I think, 1993.
We used to do that together.
That's right. And then I felt like that wasn't even working quite the same. So I shifted to gyrotonics, which is what I've been doing now. And I've been loving that for my spine and the spiralic movement and movement. I think movement is life. Movement is life. And the amount of, they say, the sedentary position at a computer or whatever, which is what we're doing right this minute, but is sort of like is like smoking used to be, like that problem of just sitting all the time. It's just not good for our pelvis or back. And we need to get up and step away and go walk a little bit and come back. And same for our eyes, and have long distance sight versus just being fixed on a computer as well all day long. It's just not normal. It's not healthy.
Right. And so many people are now working remotely. And, my husband is a chiropractor, David, and he always said that it's not the people who are on ladders painting that he tends to see. It's people who are sitting at desks all day, because as you say, it's very tough on the body. And now they have standing desks, and people are realizing that sitting is absolutely not the best. But and I want to point out also, there's so much free content online. You can get free yoga classes, free Qigong classes. I do Qigong online with various people who put enormous amounts of free content out. So, some people don't have the money to be able to go to classes and do private work, but there's a myriad of resources online now.
That's a great point. I remember I did buy something online that's a metabolic reset, and it was set for different ages and you filled out the whole kind of questionnaire, and then they gave you the videos that were appropriate. And I aim to do that 3 times a week. I'm not always successful. And then gyrotonics the other 3. So that's 6 days, and then go walking and stuff. And that I notice a huge difference with that metabolic reset. And again, it's throwing my yoga mat down, in my sitting room and putting the video on the computer and just following along, for it's like 20 minutes. And it goes through a variety of different things with light weights and some cardio and a lot of strength squats and stuff like that, and I really notice the difference in my body when I do it consistently. And when I don't, I notice that too.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about exercise is that, we always separate things into compartments, but really the movement of the body creates brain chemistry that makes you less depressed, less anxious. So it works so much on your emotional life, not just your physical skeletal life. So if I would not be sitting here if I didn't move, I would be so delirious. So I can't say enough about start slow, If you don't move and just find your way.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Thanks. And I wanted to kind of grab onto that first, just because I think it is so critical. And I know you and I, because we've known each other so long, we both love movement, and we have modified over the years. So thank you for that piece. And so with weight management, I want to look at a lot of it. Like, I want to look at, there are so many different diets right now that are out there. Obviously quantity of food versus, because so many people just, the quantity is too large, and it would just be simpler, to just reduce the quantity, but not in a crazy way. So I want to talk about this, this whole arena of food. I've always been a proponent of organic food since I was in my early 20s, and I think you also. But now we've got, whole foods, plant-based. We've got keto, paleo. We have macrobiotics. We've got just the standard American diet, of course. What are you thinking about all this? Tell me about food.
Boy. Again, COVID has been terrible for the diet of Americans. Food is comfort. And unfortunately, often the comfort foods that people choose are, highly processed, refined foods full of sugar, shelf-stable oils, which are oils that are very bad for your heart and your brain health. So we just have so much working against us with the diet thing. And the truth is there is no one perfect diet. In my younger years, I followed every diet. I did everything from Atkins, which, I remember in college, we all did Atkins. And then, of course, the paleo, the keto. I believe that there's a pearl of wisdom in every modality. There is. There's wisdom in all of it. And there's also inappropriateness for large groups of people to try to follow extremely rigid diets. They won't work in the long run. The rebel in us just comes out and says, no, I'm gonna eat that bucket of popcorn and I don't care. So you have to find a way to make friends with food and to find a path. I love what you say. To me, moderation is the key. Is that, it's difficult to put people on a rigid protocol, particularly something like keto. Keto is essentially, if you look back, it was to treat very distinct pathologies. And it can be very effective in morbid obesity, certain medical situations, to jumpstart a healing catharsis. But for the average person, it's irrational. And over the long haul, it almost never works, and people gain the weight back and then some. So I never suggest it. Paleo, not much different. I mean, so again, I like to say a Mediterranean style diet for me is what I have chosen to do with my life, which is a diverse, comprehensive type of plan, where if you want to lean more towards a vegan, vegetarian approach, then you can do that with a Mediterranean diet, where you go more with whole grains and vegetables and avocados and nuts and seeds and berries and those kind of things. And if veganism and vegetarianism just genetically does not agree with you and you feel weak, people would argue this point, this is a hot topic, but I don't think there's a perfect diet for everyone. And so you can use that Mediterranean approach, which is sort of a whole food, real food, colorful rainbow diet. That will never fail you. And so if you need to include more animal food, then you do high quality, lean types of things with little festive, more, interesting food thrown in, but in moderation. And the only other thing I'll throw in is that if we learned how to chew whatever food we're eating better, whatever diet we choose, that would change our lives more dramatically than anything, because we stress our bodies so much by improper chewing. So try to chew whatever you're eating better, and then your digestive organs don't get as stressed, and there's less free radical production created, because we all talk about free radicals, and the biggest source of free radicals is in respiration and digestion every day that we can't avoid because we have to breathe and eat. So we want to take as much stress off, and you and I know this really well from our macrobiotic days, that they used to put a stopwatch on the table. We'd chew our brown rice 100 times. And, there is incredible truth to that. So chew better, and then pick a diet. There is no one perfect diet. Find a diet that feels right intuitively. There's that whole intuitive eating world. And just enjoy your food. I mean, this deprivation, shame, guilt thing will never work. And if you're young and you're going through all of that, that's fair. Many people do. But as you age, let that go and just begin to find your way. And yeah.
I love that. It's like the joy of eating. One thing, I'm glad you brought up chewing, because, I do forget about that sometimes, although I think I naturally do chew quite a lot, probably more than most. A couple of things that came to my mind is, what do you think about drinking liquids whilst eating? Do you drink before, do you drink after, or during?
Oh, well, that's a really refined question, because
Yes.
I actually, from our background, you really don't want to drink, especially cold liquid, while you're eating. And this just freaks people out, because people get a big icy drink, stick it next to their meal, and eat and drink. But the truth is if you think about it, you've got this internal 98.6, right? That's what your average temperature is. So 98.6, that's warm. So imagine you're putting in food, and your body's your brain is saying, oh, is this protein, carbohydrates, or fat? It's secreting enzymes or hydrochloric acid so that it can begin to digest this. And if you take ice cold things and dump it on top of it, you just stop that whole process flat. So it's really a refined choice to not drink particularly cold liquid while you're eating. You can have a sip before, and then when you're done eating, you can drink to, satiation, so till you're happy. But it's very smart not to drink while you're eating. But it's really good to breathe while you're eating.
Oh yeah, breathing, taking time. My stepfather, he was a doctor, and he always said, get up before you're full. Eat to about 3/4 full, if you would even know what that is, but definitely not keep eating until you're full, because you will get full once you leave the table. After 10, 20 minutes, you're going to feel satiated, but you might not at the moment that you leave the table. And I've always remembered that, because if I eat till I'm really full, I've overeaten.
That is incredibly true. And, it's kind of a cruel joke that our digestive system plays on us, because there's something in your body called the cephalic phase digestive response. And it's a really interesting part of your brain that decides when you've had enough. But it does kind of fall backwards by a few minutes. And so it does need a little bit of time. And one of the greatest ways to support the cephalic phase digestive response is through chewing better, because as you chew, your brain is registering satiation, that you have actually fulfilled this desire. So I think that's probably the hardest thing for anyone, because we want to eat, and many people overeat. And as I age, I 100% feel, for my personal health, if I cannot overeat, I will live a lot longer. I mean, caloric restriction is scientifically proven as you age to be the single greatest way to stay alive. Restrict your calories more and more. It's not easy, but again, it's because of the free radical production, of the strain on the body of the digestion. And I think anyone knows that. I mean, go in a grocery store and there's walls of digestive aids. I mean, just walls of it. It's astonishing. So yes, you're absolutely right. Eat till you're 85% full, and just take a minute. And it's hard.
Yeah. And just another thing on this, and then we're going to move forward. But it is just, I do notice that I will eat early in the evening, and then I don't snack. I don't eat after. So, I eat around 6 and, hopefully take a walk afterwards, just to move things along. And then I notice that if I just naturally, and this is a very natural thing, this is long before I ever heard of intermittent fasting, but I would naturally just not want to eat in the morning until I was really ready, which would be somewhere around middle of the day. And I always felt, it just gives my intestines a rest, because they don't need to be working all the time. And if you want to have an alert brain, you don't want to be working on digestion constantly, because that takes a lot of power. Just power. So that has worked really well for me, but it's not a denial thing, as in if I am hungry at 10 o'clock or something, I'll eat something. But generally I find that it works if I eat around 6 in the evening ish, sometimes 6:30, 7, whatever. And then somewhere around middle of the day, I have, maybe a KVB shake. I really love the Nikken KVB shake, and I put in all the good stuff, the Super Siaga, the J Greenzymes. I throw it all in, some lactoferrin, some immunity, and that is just a mainstay. And then in the evening, I'm really ready for a good meal, and I cook it fresh with lots of veggies and
yes.
maybe
Well, I have to say that the Nikken supplemental line really covers all the bases. I mean, the line is beautiful. It just is super supportive to all systems of the body. And I know that people can pick and choose which ones they want to be on. And the shake has the MCT oil, the medium chain triglycerides, which, oil is such a hot topic because there's some oils that actually keep you alive and keep your heart healthy. And there's other oils that clog your arteries and give you Alzheimer's. I mean, it's so shocking that all oils are not created equal, but the shake with the pea protein and the MCT oil, it's a very well thought out line. So I have to commend you that, what you do. And look, you've spent much of your life, as I have, studying health. And I think if I had to say, the single most impactful thing that I try to do, it is intermittent fasting. I do exactly what, and I'd never heard of that. I think that, a lot of people eat their dinner and then snack all evening. And it is truly a debilitating pattern. If we could be serious for one moment, the worst way to live is to eat after dinner, because you won't sleep as well. You won't produce as much melatonin. Your blood is, most heart attacks happen first thing in the morning, because the body is laboring and it's taxing. They say Monday morning, there's stress involved. But again, to eat at night and not allow the body a chance to, as you say, just go a nice long stretch. It's a fast. It's crazy. You don't think of it that way because you think fasting, you have to go 3 days without food, which I never suggest typically to the average person, because then they're just binging on the 4th day. It's very hard to fast. Yeah. Intermittent fasting is brilliant. And I do it. I pretty much do it every day. And I didn't do it until a few years ago. I'm astonished how it has modulated my weight, because unlike you, I have been a little heavier throughout my life. It's always, I'm an Arab by descent. I fought it my whole life. And finally, as I've aged, this intermittent fasting, we have dinner, right? Just like you, right around 6. And unless something's really odd, we do not eat again. We go that, 15, 16 hours, which now seems perfectly normal. I couldn't more highly suggest it to anyone listening that struggles with weight. Number 1, do intermittent fasting. Go do the 18-6, even the 9-15, 9 hours of eating, 15 hours of fasting. It's profound. And then start the day with a Nikken shake and, go on from there.
It's so amazing, Nancy, because we never talked about this prior, right? And I didn't know that you were so into that. And I just found that has always worked for me. And most of my life, I think I've done that without ever knowing it. It had a sort of a name, intermittent fasting. It just felt natural. That's all.
Yeah, but you're the one, I just so vividly remember you. I'd get up and I'm like, where we're having breakfast? What are we eating for lunch? And you would never, it would kind of be the last thing on your mind. And I don't know if that still is for you, but for me, I am thinking about food and what I'm going to eat, because I'm also a cook and I love to cook. And I know you do too,
Yeah.
but I sort of did it as a profession. And so food is, I mean, I'm like obsessed with food TikTok videos, and I'm always looking at food and how I can make it healthier, but not depriving. You have to make food delicious, you know? It can't be steamed chicken breast and steamed broccoli. It's just not going to work. It has to be vital and alive and rich, you know, with good oils. And so, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we both do love cooking, but I used to teach some cooking classes, but never like you did. I mean, I was like, no, this is really not my thing. And you're right. I don't really think about food very often, actually. But, you know, I enjoy food. It's not that I don't love it.
No, I know.
I just don't think about it much. And then when it comes to like 5 o'clock, like yesterday, I cooked up a storm, you know, of beautiful veggies. I cooked some tempeh and, you know, used toasted sesame oil. Oh, I had so much fun, and coconut aminos and you know, just in some rice and brown rice. It was lovely. And then I really enjoy eating too, and I don't worry too much. But I don't have a huge big plate. I actually have quite a small plate, and I think even that, if I have a small plate and I fill it, it's full, and then I'm done, right? Mm-hmm. But if I had a huge plate, and then would I feel compelled to fill it with food? So that, even that alone, just the size of your plate can make
That's true. That's crazy. True. I did. I got rid of these big, humongous American plates, you know, it's like, and do have a little more of a, because if, like I said before, if my rebel feels deprived, I'm going to come back and want more, you know, and this is the psychology of it. But, you know, I do want to point out one more thing, and that is this, this trend where they have, you know, the experts have labeled grains as dangerous. Grains and beans, you know, with the lectins and the, you know, the carbohydrates. And I resist the whole paleo keto premise that grains, whole grains, even white rice now, you know, there's entire civilizations that have thrived and lived for centuries eating grains and beans. And I just cannot support any ideology that promotes eliminating major food groups. So be careful with that. We're so vulnerable when, you know, when we're trying to figure out what to eat. And again, that Mediterranean lifestyle, you know, look that up and really study it, because to me, it allows for all food groups.
I like the Mediterranean way. Actually, I do. When I was working in Israel and stuff, I loved the food, you know, I loved the tabbouleh and the cucumber things. I don't know. It was light. It never felt super heavy in my tummy. And I just always enjoyed it, the olive oils and all that. So
yeah, I think that's pretty much your diet. I think
probably is without me even
with the grains and beans and, you know, proteins and colorful vegetables and nuts and seeds and berries and avocados and olive oil, and that's it.
Exactly. And colorful. I love color. So I love color in everything. So I love a colorful plate. If it's all brown, I don't want it. Well, let's go to the psychology part. I'm so excited to learn from you about this. How does it work?
You know, we've touched on it a little bit, but essentially, I studied with Mark David, who has the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and remarkably, as a man, to me, he's the greatest genius of really just understanding the psychology of how what makes us tick. And his famous line is that what you eat is half the story, and we've kind of been talking about that. What you eat, what your food choices are. But the other half of the story is who you are as the eater. And it's a delineation that opens up an enormous world of all of your thoughts and feelings and emotions and what you bring to the table when you sit down to have the food. It's not, you know, you can take two people and they can eat the same diet and be completely different levels of health. It is fascinating. You could take one person who is extremely anxious, depressed, neurotic, unhealthy, paralyzed emotionally, and feed them a perfect, quote, diet, and they will not be able to assimilate it in a way that leads to health. And you could take someone else that is, you know, not particularly careful about what they eat, and yet they just radiate vitality. So it's complex. There is no one perfect diet, and there are no one perfect set of emotions, but we must work on our it's basically working with your own nervous system is what the psychology of eating is. It's that who we are as the eater makes friends with, in the simplest way of looking at it, there's two parts of your nervous system: the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest side, and the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight side. So there's this calm part of your nervous system, and there's this alert part of your nervous system. And we have the same nervous system that we had in prehistoric times when we were literally running from a lion. Like, it hasn't changed. Our biochemistry is still the same as our ancestors. So unfortunately, 21st century life, we live in a constant state of sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, chronic adrenaline, never really going into the parasympathetic, the rest and digest, because all healing happens, all digestion happens in the parasympathetic response. So if you go to the table, or you're sitting on your laptop and you're typing away and you're eating, you're not going to digest your food in the same way. So in that way, the psychology of eating is saying, it doesn't matter what you eat. It matters who you are coming to the table as the eater. And I say both of them have to kind of come together. So just learn, and so I'll stop talking, just one more point, and that is, how do you go from this stressed out, sympathetic, adrenaline pumping to a rest and digest person? Is through the breath. And so breathing is the fastest and only way to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic, to sit at the table and take 5 deep, relaxing breaths. Immediately begins to take the blood out of here in the periphery and bring it into the digestive organs, which you're about to need. As you were saying, Julie, earlier in the call, you want your blood to be in the digestive organs when you start your eating. So that rest and relaxation digestive response. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's actually really good. It's interesting. I was just studying something on voice coaching yesterday, and it was talking so much about breath. And I'm like, don't breathe very deeply, and just really letting the abdomen, expand as you inhale, and just the whole natural thing that should happen, like babies. And I'm thinking with food, before dinner, like, it's that moment. It's probably, part of the grace ideas is, you sit and you kind of calm down and you hold hands maybe or not or whatever. And you just, say thank you for the food and all good things. And you just take that moment and just sort of calm breathing before it just gives you that mindfulness and presence to what you're about to do, which is eat your meal that is giving you life. It's giving you life.
Exactly.
We die without food, water, air. These things are our natural nutrients. And so I like this a lot. So go tell me more, because I want to know, like, are there different types of people that have different psychological viewpoints of eating? Aside from that what you just said.
Well, there's so many personality styles. I mean, I'm kind of a, sort of a frenetic kind of, once I'm moving, I'm a multitasking, which I don't think multitasking, as much as we pride ourselves on it, is actually a very healthy thing for the brain. I think they've started to show now that it kind of screws your circuitry up a little bit to try to do too many things at once. And I can be guilty of that. So there are other people that are just super calm people, and I think you're kind of one of them, Julie, in that, how you go out to dinner with 10 people and everybody's talking and eating, and there's always that one person who at the end still has food on their plate and they're still sitting there eating. Be that person. That's really the thing, is that You want to be the person who's calm, who's chewing, who's relaxing. Now, it gets pretty deep, especially for women, in that I think a lot of times women suffer from, guilt over their food choices. And if they're going to eat like a plate of spaghetti and meatballs, which they, think, oh, I really shouldn't be eating this, but I'm going to eat it. They sit down and they just eat it really fast, because somehow if they're eating it so fast, then it's gone, and don't do that. If you're going to have your special food, ritualize it, so to speak. Enjoy it, light a candle, savor it, slow down. I think that, he wrote a book called The Slow Down Diet, and it's an incredible book because it talks about our life, not our food. We're talking about how we show up at the table, again, is the most primary way to do self-care. And then, of course, what we eat also is critical, which we talked about earlier. So again, multiple personalities, all trying to do the same thing: have health, have wellness, increase our life, not just to live longer, but not to be in pain, not to be suffering, not to always have stomach pain or joint pain, because, food, inflammation, and that's the one thing we haven't talked about, inflammation is really death, because it interferes not just with our joints and our hair and our nails and our skin, but it interferes with our brain and our emotions and our ability to be happy, vital people. So keeping inflammation down affects ourselves in every way. And how do we do that? We do that by incorporating a vibrant, healthy, whole foods diet, and by sitting down to enjoy it in a way that is calm, cool, and collected. And it's a marriage of those two things. And look, life is complicated when you have 2 kids and everybody's screaming and yelling, but try to make that important, the sitting down at the table and everybody taking a breath. And I love what you said about the prayer being that's historically the way we do that. I urge people to take something beautiful, like a crystal or something that they notice, and put it on their table. And so that, because a lot of times clients will say to me, oh, at the end of the meal, I remembered I was supposed to chew, and you just forget.
Yes.
But to put something really beautiful and that you'll notice on your table to be your trigger to calm down.
I like this because it's sort of like it's ritualizing it, which I think we used to have, family dinners and nobody on a cell phone texting across the table or whatever, just like family time, connecting, relaxing and enjoying.
Yes.
Really relishing the food. And what you mentioned earlier was so interesting to me about, when people might be eating something that they think they shouldn't, and they're wolfing it down. And it's kind of like, well, if I don't see it, nobody will know I ate it, and I won't know I ate it. But of course, you've wolfed it down, it's in your tummy. But it's an interesting thing that makes me think about the amount of guilt and the amount of shame. I think particularly with women, this comes up a lot, around weight management in general. There's just so much of it. And this sad thing about women comparing with other women, which is so detrimental, because we're all different. Like you said, you come from an Arab heritage. I come from a Celtic heritage, and there are certain foods like that I still love. I mean, England isn't known for its cuisine, that's for sure. But garden peas, when they're fresh, I love them, because I grew up with that, and they're probably not the healthiest of all the greens, and I eat all the other greens, but sometimes I just want peas.
Oh, Julie, I think you can have all the peas you want.
Peas are just fun, and they're fun to eat, and they skip around the plate. But yeah, this guilt and shame that we suffer from, and it's not just with weight and with what we eat or whatever. It's ubiquitous, right? It goes into all other areas of, the people. I've just been watching some films on I watched Bohemian Rhapsody, and then I watched the Elton John Rocket Man last night. And the people I get envious of are the people that just are full on self-expressed. They have they're just like, this is who I am, and they're doing it through music and the arts, because that's, of course, my background is the arts and performing. And they're the ones I'll compare with, unfavorably, like, oh, they've got that talent, I don't have that. I don't know how to write songs. And then this morning I was like, maybe I do know how to write songs, and I'm just telling myself I don't know how to write songs. What is that about? And so this shame and guilt thing can come in so many ways. But I think for women, it's a lot to do with this whole issue of what we look like. What would you say about all this?
We're human beings. We're never going to get around the, I spent much of my youth with blatant self-loathing. I mean, I suffered a lot. I really did. And I guess you learn what you learn and teach what you need to learn and embody for yourself. And it's been a painful, enlightening, inspiring journey for me personally. And that's why I think I do the work that I do, because I can really relate. I see, I'll put it this way. We're never, ever going, as human beings, we're fallible, and we're always going to compare ourselves in some ways to others. And we're going to yearn for things we don't have. It's just part of life. And yet there's huge growth that can happen. I'll tell you my favorite archetype moment. And that is that we start out as women and we're the princesses. And the princess is all about, look at me. What do you think about me? Looking outward for all of your validation. And it's beautiful. I mean, you see young women and they're just so vital and young and flawless, and yet so insecure in many ways. And then as we age, we become the queen. And the queen sits regally on her throne and bestows her wisdom and allows people to come towards her, but doesn't take what she doesn't want. And I try to really embody, as I'm aging now, this archetype of the princess and the queen, because there's always going to be a little princess in me that cares what other people think. But I want to take all of that energy that the princess throws out into the world, that's painful in many ways, and turn it in as the queen and utilize it to do self-care, to really sit down when I have a meal and when I enjoy it and chew it and savor it and realize that it literally becomes me. You are what you eat, all these little things. It's true. And to be incredibly kind to ourselves, self-care, self-love, just allowing the imperfections to be what they are and embody self-love, I think ultimately is the only soothing answer as we move through this life as human beings. We're not angelic, we're humans, and humans struggle. And yet the struggle can be made brilliant. And that's what I pray for every day. Just guide me to love myself enough to get out of my own way to be of service to others.
I love this, Nancy. I think this message is so critical, and actually, having just watched Rocket Man last night, I mean, Elton John's issues were about self-loathing. I mean, this is why he got so lost in alcohol and drugs and almost died, and now he's, because I watched a follow-up sort of interview with him, uncensored interview, and it was just beautiful to see him so in his, kingship, queenship, whatever, that place of where he just, you could tell he loved himself, and he finally found a mate, that was the right mate, that also that was able to be that reciprocity. And it was really, really touching to see. But the struggle was so much about the self-loathing, and I think many of us can relate to that. I certainly know I can, through ballet, and I mean, literally to the point where I was going to cut off parts of my body in order to be, the dysmorphia that happens, which is, when you really think your body is wrong, and it isn't. and your commit, that's all you can see is. And I remember I tried to persuade the surgeon to do these surgeries, and he was like, I don't want to. You're made perfectly. Your body's perfect. And I did such a song and dance about, figuratively speaking, about why I needed these surgeries.
Yeah.
And then my mother wouldn't let me because I was 17. By the time I was 18, the penny dropped, and I was like, there's nothing wrong with my body. Nothing wrong with my body. I've just got this warped idea from all these years of ballet. So I know what it looks like, feels like. I know how crazy making it can be, from that point of view. So we all struggle, and we are all human. And I love this message of just coming home and self-love and not worrying, about what others think. Went dancing the other night, and there was a gentleman there his body was moving. I was like, do you dance? And he was like, no, I haven't danced in 15 years. And I was like, well, I'm really safe if you want to come dancing. I said, are you worried about what people think? And he said, yes. And I said, I don't care at all what people think. I just go up there and dance. I just have fun. My body's happy to do that. And so he actually came up and danced, and afterwards he said, thank you so much. So 15 years.
Sweet.
So sweet, right? But how we limit ourselves because of that, outward focus. What will you think of me, or whatever, and people are going to like you, and people aren't going to like you, and we're all going to have that happen, right? I mean, we're not for everyone, and yet we are for the right ones. We are for the right ones.
And we have to be for ourselves. Be for ourselves.
Correct. Wow, Nancy, thank you so much. Is there any last words that you want to give us on this whole amazingly deep topic that we're just scratching the surface of?
No, I just want to say hello to all the Nikken distributors, because I love the products, and I love trying to help people live healthier lives, and I appreciate the mission. I appreciate you. I appreciate our long enduring friendship. And here's to health.
Here's to health and vitality. You've always been such a great personification model of somebody who lives a vibrant life. And I love that. I love many, many things about you, and I love that about you. And I know you love to serve, and I also love to serve, that we love to just help our world be better, happier, more vibrant, and also age beautifully and gracefully and confidently. That is not a bad thing. Aging is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful, it's better than not, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's better than the alternative.
Exactly. This has been wonderful, Nancy. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your time, for your dedication to health and wellness in our world, and for helping us really come back home to our own heart and love ourselves, because quintessentially that's where it's at.
Thank you. Total pleasure.
Great. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope you got as much out of this as I certainly did. I'm learning a lot here. And please do subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast. We also put it on the Nikken International YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that and hit that notification bell so that you get notified when we upload new videos. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will talk very soon. Bye for now.